Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I've got some fun fall DIYs to share with you that are super budget friendly. So if you want to know how to make them, stick around. I'll show you how. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Right, next one. Okay, for this one, I'm going to use 2 of the plastic leaf bowls from the Dollar Tree. And if you use a heat source on the labels, they pull off really easily. So I'm going to take them outside and I'm going to spray the inside and the outside both with Rust-Oleum espresso paint. That's dried. I'm going to take a burnt sienna paint and a sea sponge, and I'm going to dab my sponge into the paint, get some of it off, and then I'm going to start dabbing it. Now I'm going to dab this with a pretty generous amount of the burnt sienna. You want to get into each one of the little crevices and the grooves just to kind of really get this covered good. You still want to be able to see the brown espresso color coming through, but you do want to get a good coverage of the burnt sienna on here. And I'm going to do both of my leaves exactly the same way, so I'm only going to show you just one. And if you get too much, just keep dabbing it and you'll get it blended in good. And I am getting the outside edge of this as well, just the trimmed edge out. And then while that's drying, I'm going to do the back of the other one. And you're doing it exactly the same way. You want to get quite a bit of this burnt sienna on here. Just make sure that you do get it blended good and you are turning your wrist as you're painting so that it's not concentrated in one section. That's dried. I'm going to take some black acrylic paint and my same sponge, and I'm going to sponge the inside and the outside of this as well. Now I'm not going to put it as heavy as I did with the burnt sienna. You still want the burnt sienna to show through, but you do want to add a pretty generous amount and just kind of spread it out a little bit, not concentrate so much in one area. And then twist your wrist on this as you're doing it. You don't want to make it look like it's in the same shape of the sponge everywhere. It gives it a little bit more texture. And then be sure and get into your little groove areas. Now I know it looks real shiny right now, still like a piece of plastic, but we're going to fix that here in just a little bit. This was a real quick and easy project, and once I finished, this really does look like a piece of burl wood. But you can still see all the burnt sienna through it. You want to make sure you don't cover all that up. Okay, next I'm going to use a dark wax. This is a Magnolia brand, and it's called Age Look Plus Character. And we're going to just take a regular sponge and we're going to rub this on. Now this is where you're going to get rid of all the shiny part. And we're going to put a generous amount of this on here. So take some time and really rub it in good and get in every little nook and cranny on here. And then once you get it completely filled in, then you can start just kind of blending it in. But this will get rid of all the shine. And this is where you're going to start to get that wood look. So really take some time on this, get into every little nook and cranny, and you want to put a generous amount on this. Now you can kind of blend it out once you're finished, but you can start to see how it is taking away all the shine. Now there probably are other companies that sell a dark wax that you could use in place of this brand, but you do want to use a dark wax. But really get it smoothed in good. Make sure that you are dabbing it into the corners good, because you do want to get rid of any shine that's showing through. And this will protect your paint too. It really does help protect the paint. And then when you finish the inside of the bowl, you want to make sure that you get the outside of it as well. And I think these were like $1.50 at Dollar Tree. They had plenty of them. And you know, you could do this with any kind of a plastic bowl. It doesn't have to be a leaf. If you just have a plastic bowl, you could do the same technique with that. And you can definitely tell the difference between these. It doesn't look so much like it's a plastic piece. I think these turned out so pretty. Let me know what you think in the comments. Next, I'm taking one of the carvable pumpkins from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to take the stem out of the center. Next, I'm taking some leaves. I got this off of a branch that came down off of one of our trees. You can use fresh leaves. You can use artificial leaves. Either one will work for this project. So I'm going to take some rubbing alcohol, and I'm going to wipe down each one of my leaves just to make sure that they're clean and bug-free. Okay, next I'm going to start attaching them to my pumpkin with just some hot glue. I'm just rubbing a little bit of hot glue all the way around the edges of it and gluing this in. Now you want to do this while your leaves are still fresh. They won't work if you wait till they dry out. But once you get them completely covered on this pumpkin and they start to dry out, it really does look beautiful. And if you have any spots on them, don't worry about it because we are going to paint these after we get them completely covered. Just kind of take your time on this, kind of get them going different ways. You want to have a lot of texture on this, so just keep going until you have it completely covered. And I'm going to kind of go fast on this so you can see what I'm doing, but definitely get it fully covered and definitely start at the very bottom. And these leaves came off of the pecan tree, but you could use any kind of leaf that you want. If you have big leaves, it takes a little bit less time to cover this. If you're using smaller leaves, you will spend a lot more time on this. And if you don't have any fresh leaves at your house, you can go to Hobby Lobby. They do carry bags of leaves. And if you have any strings hanging out from the glue gun, just take your heat source and kind of clean it up as you go. This project really didn't take that long to do. I think I spent about maybe 25 minutes gluing these onto this pumpkin. Just make sure that you are leaving the center hole uncovered because we are going to put a stem on here. And then once you get it completely covered, just make sure that you have all the leaves, the tips of them, glued down well. You will want to spend a little bit of time getting all your glue strings off of here because once you paint this, you will see them if you don't take the time to get them off now. So I'm going to take it outside and I'm going to spray paint it with a flat white primer. This will kind of seal it in real good, but you want to cover every bit of this pumpkin. To do the bottom, I just put a pool noodle and a dowel stick in a cup. I'm putting it in here. Now it did start to tip over, so I did grab a terracotta pot to put this in to make it stable. And then I'm spray painting the bottom with the same color. So I got these stems on Amazon and I'm going to spray paint them with a metallic gold paint. Okay, next I'm going to spray paint my pumpkin the same color. Now I'm getting far away from it and I'm just doing some light sweeping motion on here because I don't want to concentrate too much in one area. I do just want a light coat on this. If you get too close in certain areas, you'll get a lot of dark spots on it and that's not what I'm looking for. I still want a little bit of the light to come through from the back part of the pumpkin, from the white part. And then once you get this side coated, we're going to take the same dowel stick that we used when we painted the white part of it. And we're just going to turn it right upside down into your cup and you can finish painting the bottom. And you're going to do that the same way with this light sweeping motions. You don't want to overkill on this paint. And then after that has dried, I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to paint one more light coat on this. Next, I'm going to take the Deco Art Metallic Champagne Gold Paint and a sea sponge, and I'm going to start dabbing this on this. This is what's going to give it a little bit of a sparkle, and it will give it a little bit of contrast against the gold that I spray painted on there. This ends up being just a little bit darker shade on here, so just kind of get it sponged all over it because you do want the shimmer all over your pumpkin. This is what's really going to start bringing out the texture in the leaves and give it a little bit more definition. But you do want to apply a pretty generous amount on here. And if you have some leaves that are starting to curl up because it is drying up a little bit, don't worry about it. It really does add a little bit of character to it. And the more the leaves dry, the prettier these get. Okay, next I'm going to use some gilded wax made by Dixie Belle in the color bronze, and I'm going to start on the bottom first because I wasn't sure how this was going to look, but I'm kind of rubbing it on the leaves to kind of bring out the leaf shape and bring out the little veins in the leaf. And I'm going to put a generous amount on here, but I am using a freezer paper to kind of wipe most of it off so it's a real soft wax on here. And this will really kind of bring out these leaves. But I am going to start lightly and then I am going to go back in and I'm going to add more. And go around the edges of the leaves and then across the leaves as well. This is where I started adding it a little bit darker on here to give it a little bit more of a rich look. But just kind of really smooth it in good. Make sure that you don't have any clumps. Just kind of take it and just rub your rag on it. It will blend in real nicely. And I'm going to go ahead and pull my stem out. I'm going to put some glue inside and I'm going to glue my stem in. All right, look how pretty that turned out. Let me know what you think in the comments. For this next one, I'm just taking a regular paper bag and I'm going to open up the bottom because we are only going to use the top part of this. We don't want the part that's all torn up at the bottom. And we're just going to cut that straight across to get that off of there. You don't want to use that part right there. So I'm going to take my paper bag and I'm going to cut these into 2.5-inch strips. Now you don't have to cut your bag open, just cut it while it's still folded up because we want it to be a complete circle once we get done cutting these out. And I'm cutting several of these out. And next we're going to cut one side of these open so we have a continuous ribbon of these little bags. Next I'm taking a crimping tool and I'm going to run each one of these through this. So just kind of make sure you try to get it as straight as you can when you put it in here. I'll give you the link for one similar to mine. I've had mine for a long time. And it doesn't matter if you get it perfectly straight, but just run it through the crimper. Now, if you don't have a crimper, you can use a scoring board and then you could just mark them and then fold them. And I'm going to use 5 of these strips. What we're making is a pumpkin. This is kind of like a fairy garden pumpkin. It's kind of like just a little whimsical pumpkin. To make our pumpkin, we're just going to start rolling these up. And you want to roll them up pretty tight. And you can put some glue along the way if you want to. I would highly recommend it. I didn't do it on a lot, but you definitely probably want to do that so it holds the center in place. And then once you get to the end, you're just going to glue that across. And then you're going to add your next one. And we're going to use a total of 5 of these strips. And I think you can get 2 pumpkins out of one bag. And just continue to roll them up until you have all 5 of them put together. And these would really be cute as a place setting on your Thanksgiving table or even just a little party favor for friends. But just continue to go till you have 5 of them connected. Next, you're just going to take one of the scraps from your bag. You're going to run it through the crimper. And then we're going to glue this down to the bottom of our pumpkin just to hold all this together. Just glue it right there and then we'll just trim it out here in a second. And then you're just going to trim that out as close to the edge as you can get. Okay, next I'm going to paint this with a rustic orange paint. Okay, next to make a stem, I'm just going to take a paper bag. I'm just going to cut the bottom of it off and then I'm going to use half of this bag to make 2 pumpkins. So just cut the bottom off. I'm going to cut it in half and then I'm going to cut that piece in half and I will use one of these on each one of my pumpkins. And then we're going to apply Mod Podge to this entire piece of paper bag. And it doesn't have to be a lot. You could just do a thin coat on here. And then we're going to start in the corner and we're just going to start twisting it up. This is what's going to make the stem part. And we're twisting on the side that has the glue, so if you want to wear gloves to keep it from being all over your fingers, I'd recommend that. Then once you get down to this part, we're going to go ahead and curve it, and then we're going to cut 3 little slits, and that's going to be for the trunk of the tree. Just kind of twist all those out like that, and that's what we're going to use to attach to our pumpkin. These are like the roots, and then let that dry real well. But spend some time to get this really curved over. You want to have a nice curve on this. And then that's how it's going to set on our pumpkin. Okay, next to give it a little bit of rustic look, I'm taking some brown paint and a chip brush, and I'm just going to dry brush this. And I'm going to add quite a bit of the brown on here. And then I'm going to do the front part and the back part as well. And then I'm also going to do my stem exactly like that too. After that's dried, I'm going to put some glue on each one of the roots and I'm just going to attach it to the top part of my pumpkin. Just kind of spread them out a little bit. Add a little bit of color. I'm just taking some leaves that I had. I'm separating these, and I'm going to put 2 of these on each one of my pumpkins. But before I do those, I am going to distress it with the Vintage Photo ink by Tim Holtz. And I'm just attaching 2 of these together, and then I'm just going to glue them right to the edge. All right, and that was pretty much it. I think these turned out so cute. Let me know what you think in the comments. Next one, I'm using one of the Dollar Tree wooden pumpkins, and I'm going to fill the hole in with some wood filler. And then just set that aside and let that dry. Okay, after that's dried, I'm going to paint this with some black chalk paint. And I'm going to paint the front, the back, and the sides, all of it. Now, if you can't get one of these pumpkins from the Dollar Tree, you can cut one of these out of cardboard and do this same process. I'm just going to use a heat source to speed up my drying time because I want this completely dry before I go to my next step. So I'm going to use a matte Mod Podge and a sponge brush, and I'm going to put my Mod Podge on kind of in the shape of the pumpkin. So I'm not going to go up and down. I'm going to kind of curve it where the curves are all the way around. Just kind of really get it curved just like the pumpkin would be. And in the center, you can still do a little bit more curves with it, but just kind of get it in there and get those curves and get it straight up and down. I mean, don't stop in the middle, go all the way down and get it completely sealed in. And I'm putting a generous amount of Mod Podge on here. I started a little bit light and I'm going in a lot darker. And mine had some trash in it, so you might want to start with some clean Mod Podge. But do put a generous amount on here. While my Mod Podge is still wet, I'm going to take some white chalk paint and I'm going to go over the same strokes just like I did on that one, on the Mod Podge with the paint. Do the curves because you want to make sure that you have a little bit of curve. It'll give it a little bit more depth and not be so flat. But just get it completely covered up, kind of work quickly on this. Then we're going to take a heat source to start our crackle process. This will crack it up pretty quickly with the heat source. That way you don't have to let your Mod Podge dry first. Go right over it with your paint, and then when your heat source starts getting it hot, it'll start really giving it a nice crackle look. Now don't put your heat source so close to your paint that you burn your paint. You just kind of want to make sure you're moving it around as you're going. And you can start to see it crackle up pretty good. But you want to spend some time on this part because the more heat you apply to it, the more cracked it gets. And then you can see how nice that cracked up. And just let that dry completely. Next, I'm using some of the Magnolia Aged Look wax, and I'm using a sponge, and I'm just going to start applying this. Now, this wasn't going in as good as I wanted it to, so I did switch over to a chalk paint brush, and I really blended it in well. And you can use any kind of brush that has some bristles, but you can kind of see that this started going into the crevices a little bit more, and it was easier to blend in. Just kind of take your time on this, but you want to make sure that that wax does get blended in well. This just gave it a little bit more of an aged look. Okay, next I'm taking some black chalk paint and a sponge brush, and I'm just going to accent the edges a little bit more with the black paint. Then to blend in the edges, I just grabbed a little sponge brush and I'm kind of dragging it into the center a little bit. Okay, next I cut out His Grace Falls on Us with my Cricut. I'll give you the link for this in the description below if you want to download it and cut it out as well. And I'm just going to put this towards the bottom of my pumpkin. And then I'm going to add a leaf towards the top. So I'm leaving a little bit of room for that leaf to come down. So just kind of center it towards the bottom. And then even with the crackle paint, this did lay on here nicely. Next, I got this wooden leaf at Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to paint it with some green paint. And this is just a medium green Hauser paint. Next, I'm going to take some brown paint, and I'm just going to draw some veins right into the leaf. And I'm just using a real fine paintbrush for this. Then I had my camera off while I was doing this, but I just glued my leaf on there. I added a little ribbon, and I am adding some of the Tim Holtz Distressing ink all around my pumpkin. This just gave it a little bit more vintage look. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video today. I hope it gave you some inspiration. If you like these kind of videos, be sure and give me a like, subscribe, and ring that bell to be notified when I have a new video upload. Thank y'all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And if nobody's told you today, you're awesome. See you next time. Thanks for watching.